So we're a university, we have our own unique recruiting issues, i.e. academics. But we also have to work with certain frameworks and rules regarding this, tendering, procurement, and that kind of thing. So I know there are some pre-questions. I'm going to try and answer them, but ask them at the end if we have time. So I joined Solent 3 years ago. At that point, there was an existing online recruitment system. This was a module of the Resource Link HR and payroll system, if you're familiar with it. It no longer met the requirements of Solent, and it was no longer fit for purpose, something that even the vendor actually acknowledged. So as an applicant, I can attest it was really quite a difficult and clunky system to use. And that was a key deliverable in our ops plan, is to bring in a new system. I mean, the system itself, although it was online, it was still very paper-based. We were creating huge job packs and that kind of thing. CVs having to be printed off and paper around the office. There was no kind of authorization process for jobs, so bits of paper would be flying around, taking 4 or 5 weeks to get around, getting lost. Eventually, when they turned up in HR, they invariably didn't have the information on them. So it was a slow, difficult process. So we were in that situation where we knew we wanted something else, but the question was what? We're about the beginning of 2017 here. We knew our license ended in the beginning of 2018, and we didn't want to renew that. So we knew we had a year to get a new system in. So we had to think about what the main driver, and that was interesting. You were saying earlier those questions. The main driver for us was the people experience. So not just your applicants, but your managers, HR, all of your users of the system. In our old system, it was quite painful. We wanted to just kind of improve that and have a good user experience for everyone. We didn't know what was out there. We knew there was lots of suppliers, so we started doing our research. We needed online managers on board, so the first thing we went out to do was survey online managers, ask them where the problems were, thoughts on their experience using the system and where there can be improvement. And I tell you, so the answers weren't pretty, but we kind of knew exactly where the kind of issues were. So we formed a reference group of 6 people from across the university, and they were all part of the project team from the start. And then we needed to look at what was out there and what the users were using. So we started asking questions in the user group, the cross-university forums, asking what people were using, what their thoughts were of it. We went across to Southampton University, went across to Southampton City Council, and we started to get a picture of what was out there. At the same time, we were looking at our processes. So we took our process end to end and we process mapped it. We need to identify where the issues, the pinch points, and mainly, look at where the actual problems were. Obviously, one of the starting points was our current solution. Yes, it was bad, but it also had some good points. Being a module of our HR and payroll system, post information would transfer across, users would transfer back. It was accessed via our portal with single sign-on, and these are the kind of features we wanted to retain. We didn't want to add value to this process whilst we're taking it away from other areas. During the research, we came across the same names over and over again. So we've got Havas, Engaged, Harbour, HireServe, Lumess, Stonefish, all in alphabetical order. No preferences. So we started the soft market testing. I think we invited 3 or 4 of the key people in to come and basically give us a sales pitch. But it actually gave us a really good idea of the kind of products that were available. And to those meetings, those group, soft market meetings, we invited lots of people. So there was our reference group, we invited senior managers, we invited everyone from HR, we invited finance, we invited ICT, all of the key stakeholders across the university. Someone from VCG came down, that's our Vice-Chancellor's group. Because you need the buy-in and engagement from across the organisation from the start. We were now at a point where we pretty much knew what we wanted. So we started putting together our detailed scopes, goals and stakeholder information, looking at the information flow and that kind of thing, putting together paper, pass it upstairs, get approval. So at that point, we need to go out to tender. Now, I'm going to talk briefly about the tender process because it's not very interesting. I mean, it's not actually appropriate to all. I'm not a procurement expert, so fortunately we have those in-house. We are publicly accountable, so we have to take a certain amount of due diligence in our tendering process and selecting a supplier. We can't just go out and pick someone. So we had two options available. We would select a supplier from an existing framework, or we would have to go out for a full tender. Now, the issue with frameworks is not everyone is on framework. Of the 6 or 7 people we'd looked at, only half of them were. So we knew we'd be limiting our options by going through a framework. So we went out to a full tender. Now, because of the potential cost over 10 years, we had to go out to a full European tender. Now, if anyone's been through that process, you'll know how painful it is. So you issue your tender, you answer the clarification questions, you then extend the tender, you then score, you then shortlist. Then we get them in for technical demonstrations. So we've got our 4 shortlisted. They come in for technical demonstrations. Again, we run around in circles and we jump through all the hoops. And then when we finally totted up the score, HireServe were, of course, the clear winner. I think one of the things you need to make sure you do is that you go into quite granular detail with that document about your requirements, and you need to make sure what your key requirements are and what your showstoppers are. So these are your absolute must-haves, and you must put that on your tender so the suppliers know if they don't meet these requirements, there's no point in tendering. It also removes any ambiguity when scoring as to whether the suppliers actually meet the requirements. Ours, I think, ran to over 200 points, and then ICT added another 50 or so technical requirements as well. Whilst we were doing this project, there was another project going on as a side, which was on our branding and our people experience, which we decided to exclude from our initial Go Live project because it just added too many uncertainties, and we would use that as a phase 2. So we went live in January 2018 with this new Recruitment Portal designed by HireServe, working with our external relations department to produce make sure the branding was in touch with our current website. Sure, there were teething problems. There was a lot of hand-holding, but we got our first jobs online and on time, and everything went fairly well to schedule. So then we started looking at phase 2. So we wanted to promote Solent as an employer of choice, to promote the values of the organisation, and just enhancing the people experience and the whole process end-to-end, including the onboarding. So HireServe then created for us what is really quite a new, bold wraparound. Please do go on to our website, have a look. Absolutely welcome any feedback on that. So, what were we doing differently? Most of it worked. I think because of the time and effort we put into planning, it meant that we had a fairly painless implementation process. We've got a system that meets our needs, it's configured correctly, and on the whole, you can't say too much about that planning. Planning, as well as don't underestimate the amount of time this is going to take, especially if you have to go out to tender. It's not a quick process. In terms of measuring those tangible benefits, we have significantly reduced our time to recruit. Particularly the authorization process is now a matter of days rather than weeks. Our managers are happy with it. They like the way it works. Our applicants are happy with it. The quality of our applicants has improved. The number of our applicants per job has improved. Queries, they're down to 0. We are kind of at a point now where it's business as usual. We are looking at it to, we want to build a a redeployment portal. We want to use it for our student placements. There's some functionality such as the talent search, which we also want to want to take use of, which we're not using really at the moment. So we will start continue development. Obviously, when the new functionality comes on board, this is reviewed on an as and when basis. So this is generally the steps we went through. I think some of the ones at the top there could probably be jiggled around a bit. As I said, time and the length of effort you need to put into going it if you don't have an ATS system, I don't underestimate.